You know, as we study the end-time prophecies in scriptures and observe how closely the world is following that very pattern, I've noticed a recurring argument, one that mirrors exactly what people were saying in Peter's day 2,000 years ago about the last times. They say, where is the promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all continues just as it was from the beginning of creation, 2 Peter 3:4. Many argue that for the past 2,000 years, every generation thought their time was the end. So how can we know that we are witnessing, what we are witnessing today truly signals that is the final days? It is true that in one sense, the last days began with the resurrection of the Messiah. However, the prophetic scriptures give very specific signs for the closing moments of this age. And those signs are now appearing with a clarity never seen before. However, the prophetic scriptures give these very specific signs. At no point, by the way, in history have so many end-time prophecies, dozens, even hundreds, been visible, identifiable, and converging all at once as they are today. Consider the nations. Scriptures says they will rise to prominence at the end, prophesied by the 16 writing prophets, and again by John in the book of Revelation. Never in history have they aligned exactly as the prophets declared until it is today. Russia, Iran, and their allies forming the core of Gog and Magog, a coalition unlike any before with such strength and purpose. The Western nations, including Europe and the Americas, are emerging as a strong bloc and are increasingly at odds with the Eastern powers. China, North Korea, and the nations of the East are rising with unprecedented military geopolitical strength, perfectly fitted the prophetic image. And then Israel, surrounded by enemies filled with a hatred we have never seen before. The nations described in Psalm 83 and in Amos chapter 1 are now gathered, stirred up, and openly expressing the desire to wipe out Israel off the map. Today, Bible prophecy isn't just drifting towards fulfillment, it is racing towards it. And as we approach the end, what should we anticipate? What would happen until the rapture? In his teaching on the last days, Jesus, Yeshua, described the signs of the end as birth pangs. This simple word in both Greek and Hebrew has a double meaning. The signs will increase in number and become more intense as his return approaches. And this is also exactly what we're seeing today: more signs, more quickly, and with much more force. But here is our great danger. We get used to the news. We hear about wars, threats, natural disasters, economic upheavals, moral collapses, and global unrest. Because these reports come every day, we start to treat them as background noise. Yesterday's crisis is forgotten by today's headline, and today's headline will be buried by tomorrow's breaking story. Yet the signs themselves are not fading. They are intensifying. The world is not calming down. There's an increasing agitation. Take, for instance, again, anti-Semitism. How far has it gone? This past week, I read a very disturbing article published by the Jerusalem Post and other respected outlets. There we learn of a certain organization that has placed assassination bounties on Jewish academics, both those living in Israel and those in the diaspora. Several individuals on the list reside outside Israel, including some United States and some here in Canada. They offer $50,000 for murdering a targeted Israeli academic, $100,000 for the murder of a special targets, and other financial rewards for providing information about them or committing acts of intimidation. How far can we go? The group goes as far as publishing home addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, social media accounts, and even identifying numbers of hundreds of these academics from Ben Gurion University of the Negev, Technion Israel, and so on, so forth. Even that is Harvard University and European Organization for the Nuclear Research. This organization is called Anti-Israel Org. It is not the name of a specific organization, rather it is a term often used to describe any group whose mission is hostile towards the state of Israel or the Jewish people. They appear to be based in the Netherlands. The prophets were right. The nations and the people are turning against the Jewish people in the end times. This is what they said. This is what we're saying then today. Furthermore, just yesterday, in Italy, strikes and large protests erupted nationwide, canceling dozens of flights and disturbing train services after the government announced plans to increase its support for Israel. And just about 10 days ago, the Palestinian flag was raised at Toronto City Hall in a city home to more than 170,000 Jews. The same thing happened in Calgary, in Brampton, in Mississauga. God bless the Palestinian people, but one can't help noticing that these displays weren't expression of love for the Palestinian population, but rather acts of opposition to Israel. Even the media, despite talks of peace, consistently depicts Israel as violating the ceasefire in Gaza and portrays Hezbollah as victims of wars, even though they were the ones who started it. Now, ignoring the many signs around us does not slow them down, nor does it change what God has already set in motion. The only reason these events haven't fallen all at once, it's because of God's patience. God's patience. As the scriptures demonstrates, and I want to tell you over and over, the Lord is giving time, precious time, so that as many people as possible may come to a saving knowledge of the Messiah. That's why it didn't happen 2,000 years ago. This is where we step in. This is why we must declare His word now, while the door of grace remains open. And this leads us, by the way, to the study in Nehemiah that we're at right now, where we will see exactly what happens when a nation or even an individual chooses to turn to God. Amazing, powerful, life-changing things start to happen. And I'm very excited to share with you this great section of Nehemiah.